I am super stoked to have the Kel and Will show in here. So we have Kelly Schwartz and Will Reichenstein. Many people will know you from the paddling world. Many will know you from your podcast. I've known you both for a super long time growing up here at the Newport Aquatic Center. And as always, kind of the whole focus of this podcast is I just love to connect the dots. And even with people like you that I've watched growing up, and I know your family, Will, Kel, I know a bit about yours. There's so much that I don't know. And even with your podcast, which we'll talk a lot about and maybe a little bit later on, I guarantee you that people that know you from your almost 100 episodes, which is incredible, but they probably don't know the whole backstory. Like, how did you guys get into paddling? And how did you guys come to get like all this stuff? And so it is really fun for me. And again, I only know bits and pieces. And it's the same thing I say every time I'm here. I'm like, we're going to connect the dots because inevitably there's going to be things, even if I think I know you super duper well, there's stuff I don't know. And I love the storytelling that we get to do. And again, especially since you guys have been kind of working together and friends, and we'll talk a lot about how that all came about. But that's it. We're just chatting today. And it's fun to have you guys kind of on your heels because you're usually the ones doing the interviews.
Oh, I know.
On your podcast.
We're on our heels.
I get to do it.
Yeah.
And if you look at Kelly's beautiful outfit, it is Valentine's Day.
Is.
So thank you for spending Valentine's morning with me. And this is the first time I've done a 2+1.
Yeah.
So it's fun. So thanks again. And to kind of set the stage a little bit, this is not a paddling podcast. For anybody that knows me, I have a passion for really cool people doing really cool stuff, for ocean sports and endurance stuff, and then just storytelling. And so we're going to talk about paddling because it's a big part of your worlds, but it's not the only part. And that's what we're also going to dig into, which I think will be really interesting for people that don't know the backstory, even if they know you really well through, again, 100 podcasts or races or racing, etc. That's where we're going to go. And I think that I kind of just tapped on it. Both of you are big in that world, and you're well known in that because, as I would say, I was thinking about like you guys are both behind the scenes and in the front of the pack. So both from the racing, but also on the race organization side, the boat building side, sponsored athletes, working with brands, like super deep in the radical sport of ocean outrigger paddling. And it's just super cool. So I think there's a lot of people that will find both the history interesting and also where you are, how you got there in this paddling game that we're in, and just shine a light on it.
Totally.
That cool?
Yep.
Awesome. So I thought what we would do, and if anybody was listening before we technically started, we're talking about 17th Street, the street we see right behind us, is not far from, I think, where both of you guys grew up.
Right.
So I know a bit about your growing up, Will. Kel, I saw you at Newport Aquatic Center, but I don't know anything more than that. Other than at coffee you mentioned this morning, you're the oldest of 5 girls.
Yep.
So your dad, as we all said, Dad's working hard to pay for a lot of weddings. But can you tell the story? Where did you grow up? What was it all about? Just give us some backstory.
Yeah. So, I'm the oldest of 5 girls, born in Newport, right at Hogue. Where my kids were born. So it's kind of fun. We're still in the same community, but. Yeah, I mean, I lived in Dover Shores, probably 3 streets up from NAC, for about 7 years before I even realized NAC was down there. I rode my bike down there at 14 with 2 friends, and I was like, what is this place?
What street were you on?
Corner of Marion and Dorothy.
Got it.
Yeah.
I don't live far from there.
Yeah.
So again, for anybody that doesn't know the area, we're in Newport Beach. We're at the Newport Beach, Costa Mesa area. Newport Aquatic Center, which we'll talk about, is probably 2 miles from here, and the community around it is called Dover Shores. So you drive, anybody that's been down there, you drive through the community of Dover Shores down to the Newport Aquatic Center. And so you lived there for about 7 years, didn't even know it was there for a few of them.
We moved into that house when I was 7, and then, later on I was like, oh, there's this big building down here, that's kind of cool. And I didn't think much of it. And then I'm the oldest of 5 girls, but I'm also the shortest of 5 girls. And so volleyball just wasn't landing for me at all. It landed for my sisters. And I was playing basketball, and that's how I met Malia, our other best friend.
Malia Hull?
Yep, Malia Hull. And we were playing basketball together and volleyball. And then we kind of you get to that spring season, you're like, oh, I don't want to run track. I don't.
Well, I don't want to get too far into paddling yet.
Yeah.
But so you grew up here. What schools did you go to?
Mariners Elementary and then Ensign Junior High in Newport Harbor.
So you followed this side of the bay as normal path of travel.
Yep.
Those 3 schools. And I'm guessing Newport. Well, I don't want to guess. We're going to keep going on you, and I'll get over to Will in a second.
Newport Harbor. And then after that, I kind of just floated around. I did a year at OCC, and then I actually moved up to where they went to college in San Luis Obispo for a year. And then I moved back.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Cool. So you haven't gone far?
No, have not.
Got it.
Nope.
And Will, you haven't gone far, but your path was a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So talk about growing up here.
Very similar. I think only a couple miles separates where we both grew up. East side, Costa Mesa. Went to Kaiser. That was just maybe a half mile from where I grew up. Ensign as well, and then Newport Harbor. I think I was right on that border, maybe a half mile away from being whatever the middle school, and then Costa Mesa High was. So I was kind of right in that zone.
Gotcha.
And then NAC's never not been a part of.
Well, we will talk
life.
a lot about NAC because it's such an active part of everybody here.
My earliest birthday parties, I remember taking double holes to go to the crab dock, the seafood dock right at the base of PCH.
Pearson's Port.
We'd go to Pearson's Port. We'd go to Bubble Beach, jump off the bridge. Like those were my birthdays growing up. It happened more than once.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty similar trajectories. And I went up to San Luis Obispo.
Now, in high school, you played some other sports,
soccer,
though.
Yeah.
You were a big
soccer. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then we'll go to college, and then we'll come back to the paddling piece, because I know that you guys, well, I want to find out.
You can tell we're itchy to jump right into
Well,
that.
it's such a natural thing for all of us,
I mean,
right?
what else do we talk about?
Yeah. Don't dig up the past, Mark.
That's why I'm here.
Don't dig up the past.
I'm here to direct this if I can. It's hard to do so.
Soccer, yeah.
Well, so you went to San Luis Obispo you moved up there, but not for school? Or
Nope, not for school.
You were just playing?
Well, you went to school.
I went to school.
We didn't go much.
I didn't go to the university. I went to
Cuesta.
the Cuesta.
Got it.
The
Which
community
is
college.
A lot,
right
and
there.
a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
It's just like Santa Barbara. You go to city, and then you go on to the
Yep.
university. So talk about because you did a couple different things in college, if I recall. Right?
Well, I mean, I jumped around. Like I did 2 years in San Luis Obispo. Then I did my third year was the National Student Exchange Program. I exchanged with University of Hawaii. Usually that program does like a 1-to-1 exchange. A student from there comes over and vice versa. But they weren't affiliated, the Cal Poly and UH. So there's this different type of way they run it that allowed me to go there for a year and then come back for my last year.
Gotcha.
At Cal Poly.
How was that year?
That was the year that really changed the trajectory of where I was going to land for a while. Because I came back to Cal Poly very begrudgingly. And don't get me wrong, I love the San Luis Obispo area.
But after spending a year in Hawaii as a paddler,
well, that's when I knew.
Right?
That's when it really clicked for me what I wanted to pursue, and that was competitive paddling in Hawaii specifically. Because we have it here, not to the level that it's at now, but you have top level guys like a Danny, for instance, that you can compete with if you stay here. But going to Hawaii, experiencing.
So let's stay narrow on that 1 year there.
Yeah.
Before you begrudgingly came back.
Right.
What was it about that year in Hawaii? Like, just talk about what you experienced. Because I'm going to reflect on me. I only, as a super active surfer in high school, the only places I was willing to go to school was San Diego, Santa Barbara, or Hawaii. Those are the only places it was a lot easier to get in back then. I still wasn't smart enough to get into Santa Barbara.
Mark, I was a Parks and Rec major, so let's just.
Okay, well, we were going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So you went, let's talk about it, San Luis Obispo. You were focused on Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, yeah.
Did you have an aspiration of what that would look like when you came out of school?
No. Okay. That was just that was what was going to get me
That was the ticket
accepted.
into the
but
school.
let's just not besmirch the major, because there are incredibly talented people and professors with doctorate level degrees that teach this, because they've changed the name since. I think my opinion is because of the show. Parks and Rec came out, and it was the joke was always Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
So they've changed it to experience industry management, which sounds a lot more refined.
Yes.
But within the Parks and Rec major, there was these main concentrations. Event planning, mainly wedding planning, was the ticket.
You would have been a great wedding planner.
Nope. Then you could go into the Park Service, Forestry Service, or sports management. So kind of an offshoot of the kinesiology department. Sports management was one of the other concentrations. So the major was like 90% women because they were all going event management route. So you want to talk about organized. They were organized.
Interesting.
And then you had, the 5 guys in the back that were going the route of, I think one of the guys ended up starting his own surf school down in Costa Rica. I need to check in on.
Yes, I think you
his.
should.
It was a very widely based
but if you
group
had
of people.
Where did you, as you were going through it, was it really just a goal to get your degree and get out with that? Or was there something within the space that you thought you wanted to do?
No, I think it was just a way that I was there and I was interested in it. But you're 18, 19, I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just a way of, this is the most likely chance for me to get into this school. Because originally, I was just going to go to OCC to play soccer.
Oh, so you got in because of your...
You have to declare.
You do.
For
Okay,
Cal
got
Poly.
it.
You have to
interesting.
declare.
I didn't know that.
I didn't want to declare anything, but there was no other...
forced that. Oh, interesting.
But, that's the whole other thing is I was going to go to OCC because I didn't want to move. I was going to go to OCC. I was going to play soccer. I could keep paddling here. That was what I wanted to do. And then something right around decision time changed my mind. And so Parks and Rec was just kind of the only thing on the list of majors that remotely appealed to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, then, not to interrupt, but we had...
Please, I'm talking too much.
Malia Hull also got accepted to
That's
Cal
right.
Poly
She was in kinesiology.
For kinesiology. Yeah. His best friend, our other friend, Gavin, also got accepted to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So with them two going, and then...
Malia.
And all 4 of us grew up at NAC, so when all 3 of them went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, I was like, hey guys, I'm coming, hold on.
Got it.
Well,
let's talk about that year at UH.
Yeah.
We're right after this, we're going to talk about where you guys met and how that was through paddling, et cetera. But let's talk about that first year in Hawaii because it sounds again,
that was
begrudgingly returned. So
I mean, it wasn't again. I love San Luis Obispo, but I knew the moment I graduate, I'm going back. Because it was like the world opened up for me. Everything's brand new, but again, this is the paddling community on its whole. Is if you show initiative and you show that you want to be there, people will just open doors for you to walk into. So when I moved there, I was living in a student housing building. The Atherton House is this pink building on University Avenue right next to UH. And there is an old one-man just a couple miles down on the Alawai Canal. That used to be Josh Creighton's, I think Josh Banfield's, I think Danny Ching's, I think Tyson used it.
Did all those guys go to school over there?
They don't all go to school there, but they all spent time there or
Got
knew
it.
somebody who was in school there. So there's this like 30-year-old wave blade one man.
And for reference, every name just shared are elite paddlers from California that have spent time over.
And so I was, I had a bus pass that came with my student ID, and so I just was taking the bus from the Atherton building down to the Huilanakila site and paddling, I mean, every single moment I could, because I was lucky enough to just go to school and train. That was it. It was school and train.
The beauty
school
of being
train.
in college.
Very,
Right.
very unrealistic lifestyle. And
I tell my kids, I have 2 in college, I'm like, enjoy every minute of it.
Don't waste a second.
Enjoy
That's
every
right.
minute.
Yeah. And so I was paddling mainly on my own at that point, and then you start meeting people here and there, and they connect you with the next group. And so before I knew it, there was, he's passed since about a year or 2, but Kalad Judd lived in a house from like the 1940s, just up around the corner from the Atherton house. And he started picking me up in the mornings, taking me to Outrigger, where they had another canoe that I could borrow. The Kamanu guys did. I was paddling with Kamanu then.
So Outrigger Canoe Club,
Outrigger
at Waikiki,
Canoe Club.
as good as it
mean,
gets from a paddling world perspective.
So he was picking me up every morning, taking me to go train. I was training with Walter Guild, Jimmy Austin, the whole
Hawaiian Hammers.
outrigger community, and they just took me right in. And so only a couple months passed. The next semester was coming up, and he says, hey, move out of the Atherton building. I got a room you can rent at my place. And he just kind of
Set you up.
set me up. Yep. At the time, he was coaching Team Primo. They're now known. They're the Wailea boys. And so I had done a race with them previously when I was a little younger, before I'd moved over there. But now this was the full circle connection. So I'm living at the house of the coach. He's very active himself as well at this point in his life. And so we're riding bikes up Tantalus
So you're
Mountain.
training super hard.
Training.
Rad.
I'm going to school. I'm training. The semester system worked better for me because everything was more long-winded. Cal Poly was tough because it's quarters, and it was just hard for me to keep up on.
And you
that.
weren't playing soccer at Cal
No,
Poly.
that's you could talk about when your dreams die. Yeah,
Oh.
that was one of those weird moments. It's hard to prepare somebody for.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, this thing that you think you're really good at.
Yep. I know a lot. That is not
landing. It's not landing.
And it's not an uncommon story, right?
So I played a little bit of club soccer here and there, and then I eventually realized, I pulled my head out of the sand. I was like, oh, that's not the direction I was actually.
Yeah.
Going.
You're like, I'm guessing you're like, I'm either going to play D1 or I don't want to play.
Yeah, I remember
right?
actually my mom, this is a good one. My mom, so Ryan Hernandez, I don't know if you know him.
I don't think so.
You would know him by degrees of separation. He's a local boy. He coaches UCSD now, but he was our coach at Newport Harbor. And I remember my mom telling me that, Ryan thinks you could maybe play D2 or something. And I was
Heartbroken. Oh.
I was livid. And I look back on it now and I'm like, he was being nice.
Oh.
D2 was being nice.
Wow. Yeah.
I think we need to.
Hey, sliding doors, right? I
Yeah.
think, had you been playing D1 ball or D2 ball?
I was playing high school.
Okay, right. But let's say that you were good enough to play D1, D2 ball, and you
Okay.
did in college. You probably wouldn't have gone to
No, yeah,
Hawaii.
everything
You
would have
probably
been different.
It would have been really different.
Yeah, everything would have been different.
Something happens for everything happens
Yeah,
for
no,
a reason,
trust
I
me,
think.
I'm not upset about
The direction. But at the time, it hurt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I walked into the coaches and asked him for walk on, when's the tryouts, and he looked at me like, "What are you talking? Like, really? What?
Wow.
We don't do tryouts." Yeah.
Wow.
But
You're like, okay.
yeah, so then I
Plan
found my
B.
niche. Yeah, I found my niche
Yes, you did.
in Hawaii, and that's when paddling really.
And then they tore you out of there. And we're getting into paddling
Yeah.
already, but
Yeah.
but then you had to go back to San Luis Obispo. And
Yeah, I
at
finished my year there.
But when you went back,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm going to get this done. And then you started planning to get back over there.
Yeah.
Is that right? Gotcha. Okay. And Kel, how long did you stay up in San Luis Obispo?
A year, just 1 year. The year before.
One beautiful year.
It was great. I took a welding class.
Sick.
I
Our
did.
GPA.
Isn't it interesting that your husband is a welder?
Right.
took
Or
a
whatever.
dive that year?
Okay. So let's go back. All right. I mean, this is why I was hoping to get you guys in the room, because this interplay, which you hear on your guys' podcast, which at the very beginning of your podcast, the intro, you talk about two best friends talking about what you love, and then you go a little bit irreverent, and you're like, if you don't like hearing kids and dogs, like, it's probably not the podcast for you, Kelly. I love that. So let's just jump back. Your connection. Where, when, how did you guys connect? Did paddling start it, or did school start it and get you guys into paddling? Like, that's
a
kind of
little
the way
bit
I was
of
thinking.
There's a little bit of both. I mean, I think because we went to the same junior high.
Right, but we were.
Are you the same year?
different-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we were in different
Groups.
Yeah.
different groups because we grew up in different, elementary schools.
Yep.
But then, you could really bring it, in my memory, would bring it back to the NAC junior team.
Yep.
And
I mean, it's Malia who.
Yeah.
You know,
She was the conduit a little bit?
yeah, because she and Will have known each other since day one,
Birth,
diaper
yeah.
days.
Oh,
Yeah.
because of your dads?
Pretty much, yeah.
Interesting.
You
And
could
we'll
say
talk
that.
about. We'll talk about
and
these.
moms too,
Okay.
Both our parents.
I didn't know. I've never met Malia. So we'll talk about Malia's dad, Bud, big paddling.
Yeah.
Billy Whitford, big paddling. Your family, big paddling. you're the first generation of big paddling, I think,
Yep.
in your family,
Yep.
right? So you met, you think, in junior high. So at Ensign junior high school,
we didn't
probably?
we probably
Yeah.
really didn't connect though until
NAC.
sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start then. So how did you both get into paddling? I'm going to start with you, Kel.
It was just Malia and I had been playing basketball. I'd been playing volleyball also. And then you get to this weird spring season when those sports are over in the high school circuit of sports. And some people run track, some people do other stuff. And I was like, I really don't want to run track or play lacrosse or do any of that stuff. And Malia's like, why don't you come paddle? I'm like, where do you paddle?
Oh, because she grew up with
Yes.
a dad that was
and
a
so
big
she
paddler.
paddles
Okay.
for school credit. And I was like, you could do this for school credit? And so I went to the NAC, which was probably the second time I'd been there, because the first time I just ridden my bike down there and I was like, this is a place.
It was a cool place
It was
to
a
go
cool place.
airsofting.
Yeah, donuts and
Yes.
but
Except you'll get in big trouble if you do that now,
yeah,
probably by
yes,
you.
Yeah, I'm the one chasing them. Get off my lawn. But yeah, and then so I started paddling, and I just didn't stop. And I
Hold on. What
Yeah.
year? When?
that would have been 2004.
And that you would
Or
have
5.
been in junior high school? Is that what you said?
sophomore in high school.
Oh, sophomore in
is
high
when
school
I
is when you started.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And you haven't stopped, and we'll get to
Yeah.
that. So that's the genesis of that, and probably through Malia.
Yep.
And then you probably started a little bit younger.
Not really though. Like I was always around it.
Okay, so
And
let's
I-
talk about, you were always around it. Why? Talk about your folks.
Well, you gotta have so we've been waiting to have my dad and both my mom and my dad on a podcast, but we need a
Trust me,
situation.
I'm trying to get.
No, but this is the perfect situation because it needs to be in person. Doing something over the phone with my dad is.
Yes. Willie, your dad is Willie, and I paddled with him this morning. I paddled yesterday. So
Yeah.
give a little backstory about your dad, where he grew up.
Yeah, so this
How
is
we
why
ended up here.
we gotta bring him on. I'll give you
Oh, yeah.
the cliff notes because we
Yes.
gotta bring him on. You gotta bring him on. I will physically deliver him.
Hallelujah. I can't wait.
But the cliff notes is he was born and raised in Darvel, Scotland. Sir Alexander Fleming's home, birthplace penicillin. Let's go, don't forget
Wow.
it. Very, very small town. He taught in England for a while. He was a physical education teacher.
That makes sense.
Always coached canoe and kayak. He did 2 Olympics, 76 and 80, Montreal and Moscow for Great Britain, high kneel canoe. He eventually came over this way, went to Kentucky for a year to get his master's degree. You can imagine how funny that must have been, accent to accent.
See, hold on. This is why I do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm with Willie 3 mornings a week or more.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a teacher. I didn't know he got his master's. I didn't know he was in Kentucky. Like,
Yeah.
just never know. Love it.
And so, you probably know this better than I do, but so outrigger canoe paddling was starting to not take off, but it was starting to really become more of a sport.
70s, 80s.
Yeah, this
Probably
is
80s.
where you need Bud.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the early 80s. Billy was assembling the Olympians. And so back in the days, Blazing Paddles, Offshore Canoe Club, they were pulling in a lot of high caliber athletes in canoe and kayak world. And somehow Billy met my dad at, I don't know if it was a kayak event or something, and said, if you find your way out on the West Coast, we got this thing coming up. Newport Aquatic Center wasn't built yet.
So this would have been before like 84. So this would have
Yeah.
been early 80s, late 70s, I
So
imagine.
he somehow gets his way over here, starts racing outrigger canoes with Billy, with Blazing Paddles. I don't know if he was with Blazing Paddles, but that group, eventually Offshore Canoe Club. And then I think one of the fun stories that you got to uncover too is his visa was coming up, or I don't know.
It was the time limit on the visa
Yeah.
for him. 'Cause
Yeah, and so he was going to have to go back to
Mm-hmm.
Great Britain, something like that. And the Newport Aquatic Center was going to be developed, and they supposedly made
Sponsored
him the director of operations to prove that he had a job that he was more qualified to do than
somebody
a
else.
citizen,
Yeah.
and that kept him.
Got it.
I
We'll
don't
need to
wanna
dig
put
in
weight.
that one.
And then,
Gotcha.
and you know, the rest is history. He's been here ever since.
And without getting ahead of myself, for anybody that doesn't, like, you're starting to hear, like, okay, Olympic, the Newport Aquatic Center, Blazing Paddles. This was like kind of the, now, outrigger paddling. And for people that have no idea what we're talking about, an outrigger canoe has the central canoe and then it has an off the side. So if you're in Hawaii and you see people paddling around, typically you're seeing an outrigger.
Yeah.
But it's Polynesian and it's been around for centuries.
Yeah.
But in California, it was really starting to take off in this time period with those people we just mentioned, Bud, Billy, your dad.
Yeah.
And now,
So
this is what we do.
That was a really long answer of
No,
telling you I've been around it
Yes.
my whole life. But, you know, like I said, I had always played soccer. I'd always kind of had my own things that I wanted to do. But then it wasn't until around that same time, sophomore year of high school, maybe late freshman year of high school, where it just something clicked. And my dad, as you know, he runs the Willie workouts. It used to be Monday through Friday. Now it's Monday through Thursday, 5:45 a.m. on the water. And I started going to those as much as, well, he would physically yank me out of bed.
Hallelujah.
Like, you know, the
Yep.
weightlifting drill where you have the ropes and you shake it. That was my legs. I'm not kidding. At 5:15 in the morning, he'd
When you have high-performing parents, you're
shake
gonna,
me away.
they're
Well,
gonna try.
To be fair, he waited until I said, I want to do this. It wasn't a forced.
It's a smart way to go.
Yeah,
right?
and so the moment I said I was trying to play volleyball. How stupid is that? And we were getting screamed at by the coach at 5:15 in the morning. You know, my freshman year, and I remember my dad would drop me off on his way to NEC, and I got picked up one day, and I was like,
That sucks.
"You got to take me paddling. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done with this." And that was it. And so
Boom.
then I started doing that.
Well, it's a super. Oh, sorry.
And then that's how Kelly and I really started to blend together, because I grew up with Malia as a sister figure. Malia and Kelly were best friends, our best friends. And so now I was suddenly
brought into
everything, the triangle was completed, right? And so we started paddling around the same time. We had a really cool group that Sam was running for the NAC junior team.
Sam Couch.
Yeah, and that's where it kind of started, you could say, for the two of us.
Got it. And your mom has a big paddling background as
She
well,
does.
right?
She does,
Did your
yeah.
parents meet through paddling?
Mm-hmm.
Here.
Yeah.
Where'd mom grow up? Where'd Liz grow up?
Anaheim.
In Anaheim. Okay. Gotcha. That's your local connection. All right. You brought up Sam Couch, and I think he's a really formative figure in your guys' life. Can you guys talk about Sam maybe at that time? And I knew
Please.
Sam pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, Sam was our outrigger coach growing up. He also coached the men's outrigger team for the longest time.
How much older than you was Sam?
He would be 51 this year.
Okay. It's closer to my age.
Yeah.
18 years.
Got it.
Yeah. How old are we? We're 30-ish?
33.
33?
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd be 51 this year.
Okay.
And he actually was also a junior at the NAC when it started, taking on juniors for rowing and for canoe and kayak. He had a cystic fibrosis, and so I don't know the timeline, but I know that his doctors were like, hey, salt water is really gonna help clear your airways, I believe. And so his mom was like, well, there's the Newport Aquatic Center, so they got him into rowing, into high kneel canoe, into K1, into anything they could down there. And then he just kind of stuck and kept working there. And I guess the junior outrigger team used to be canoe and kayak when canoe and kayak was more prominent in this area. And then I think people in the U.S. in general. And then outrigger kind of just started taking over in the early 2000s. More, and so then it just kind of morphed into the junior outrigger team, and then we had adult outrigger teams that were kind of forming, and he coached all that. And so he was just a huge mentor in our life, just through being our friend, being our coach, keeping us in line, making fun of us.
He was
all that
a
stuff.
lot of that,
Yeah.
So from an athletic perspective, here's a guy that had cystic fibrosis and ultimately died from it.
Yes.
And yet he was a hammer. Like, he went so hard, and you'd hear him coughing and stuff while we were out there, and he'd probably be dropping me. Like
Yeah.
he was an unbelievable athlete, determined, and going through some hell stuff.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
impressive. He was also, I didn't know him as well, not nearly as well, nor did I have him as a coach or anything, but like there were a couple different sides to Sam. Like he was super cool, but I wouldn't want to get on his bad side. Is that a safe thing to say?
Oh,
I
very
got on
safe.
that a couple times.
Oh, we've been on that side. Bruce lived on that side.
Is that right?
Bruce lived on the bad side.
I think,
But
yeah, we had very similar relationships to him, but we also had very different relationships with him because he was very personalized to.
Every individual got a
Yes.
different Sam?
yes.
Based on what you need or based on what he thought of you? Or
Well, you didn't think you needed it then, but you look back on it and you
You're
go,
like, you
yeah, that was
needed
what you needed.
was he a
Yeah.
pretty formative guy in your lives?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
We could plug, there's a Broadcast Bretta's episode where we go into this. I think the first one we
I
got
haven't
on.
heard that one.
Yeah, and we really dive into it.
Rad.
But I mean, from my perspective, he is one, I mean, there's other people as well, but he is one of the real biggest influences, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, as to why Kelly is as good at what she does as she is and why she hustles so hard, because we were surrounded at a young age, very impressionable age, by people who, if you can't fix the problem, well, you better figure it out.
Right.
And that's just been the motto, and that's how we kind of pursue the lives that we've created for ourselves, because if there's a problem, she's going to figure it out.
Right.
Because there's no other option. You just figure it out. You connect the dots, you make the calls, and you put the pieces in play. And so he was one of those guys, I think, that really rubbed off on you, especially as far as how to hustle, how to pursue something, and just if you need something done and no one can help you with it, you do it
You
yourself.
gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
I always joke that the first time I ever drove a trailer was when Sam was in the hospital and he was supposed to deliver something for a fundraiser. No one else could do it. So I just took the truck down to NEC. I'm like, I've seen him do this 100 times. And I just hooked up the trailer and I left and I kept going and I delivered what needed to be delivered and I came back and Sam was so mad. He was like, what are you doing? And I was like, it needed to be done and you couldn't do it. I've seen you do it. So I did it. And he's like, you can't just do that. You should have told somebody. And I was like, I just told you. We're good.
Resourcefulness,
Yeah.
right? So I love that distinction about NAC and Sam and his influence, and watching it, because I've been spending a lot of time there. Like I always say that my triangle of life is my house, my office, and NAC. That's it's a pretty good quality of life, thank goodness. You could probably say the same thing, right? Except your office is the NAC in many ways, right? You're a jack of multiple, both of you have a lot going on. We're going to dig into that. But let's stay on NAC. So so Newport Aquatic Center, Newport Beach, we've talked a bit about it in the 80s. Sam was the junior coach and others. There's a lot of parts. I always talk about when people ask me about it, I'm like, it is, if you don't know about it and you live in Newport, it is one of the gems of the community. It is one of the most incredible resources to Orange County, to anybody, because there's, you can rent, you can be part of a team, there's so many things you can do there, whether you're a rower or a paddler, super inclusive, lots of really cool programs. But what I always shine a light on is the junior programs. You watch these scrawny little kids come in as incoming freshmen in both the rowing side and the paddling side. And by the time they graduate, the rowing side produces probably more scholarships than any other program in Orange County, if not Southern California. It's unbelievable how many of these kids go on to elite level schools because of the rowing program, which is elite. On the paddling side, less scholarships, but
Less?
0
Try
scholarships.
none.
Oh yeah, I was trying to be nice, which is a travesty. I mean, unfortunately, people probably go, I want to get into college, I'm going that way.
Right.
But a lot of people come back after rowing and spending a lot of years at NAC. They come back and become paddlers.
Oh, for sure.
Because you go forward and it's more
There's surf.
Rowing's awesome, paddling's awesome, but the fitness, the camaraderie, the community, and there's just so many amazing people involved. And I always talk about, like, so I paddled this morning with your dad, Olympic. There's always multiple, Jimmy Terrell, Olympic. Some of the premier boat people, paddle build, like, it attracts elite people at all levels of their career, whether they're Like we have a couple young women that are training for the Olympics, the U.S. Olympic team. We have past Olympic. We have international people that use it as their winter training grounds. Like if you want to hang around elite performance people of all ages, I don't know of another resource like that anywhere that I could think of. And they're just normal people that will, your dad gives people advice all day long. Jimmy Terrell gives advice all day long. Johnny Puokea will come and hang out and give it, like, where do you get that for free as a friend? Like it's pretty special. And every once in a while I get lucky and, beat somebody in a piece that has an Olympic tattoo. And I'm like, whew, I feel pretty good about myself today, NAC it's an incredible resource. And so within that, Kel, you're a big part of it. So let's get into kind of career stuff now, because you guys haven't deviated very far from it, right? From the paddling world. Like you guys are deep in it. Kel, you've become one of the premier race directors. You were already talking about you were already talking about the resourcefulness that you've had to kind of learn or you learned by default to being part of it. And I just skipped over Billy Whitford, one of my favorite people in the world, one of the founders of NAC, the executive director of NAC. Like that guy will do, again, like drive, like, I got to go drive a trailer to Northern California. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it again, tomorrow. Like we'll do anything for the sport, both of rowing and paddling, and has been incredible for this community.
Well, not just the sport, but the people of the sport too. He'll do anything for anyone, no matter, what team you're on.
Met you for 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's,
And he'll give you shit just as quickly. Yeah. So talk about NAC and how it's impacted your life and why you're so involved in what you're doing there these days.
Gosh,
that's a big question.
It's a big question. I don't even know how to summarize.
So let's talk about your role at NAC and maybe your involvement with the coaching and that side of the sport.
Yeah, I'm there every day. I grew up, as soon as I was out of high school, I jumped right into assistant coaching the junior outrigger team with Sam. And then when I moved back from San Luis Obispo, I jumped right back into coaching the junior team with Sam, and I'd always worked in the office. And then when Sam passed, it was just like a natural me. I'm now coaching the junior team, and Billy was huge in that, transition. He really took on making sure that the outrigger team is going to be okay. Cause for a minute, we were just we weren't okay. But, so that just kind of fell into my lap there. And then, involved into me coaching the women's outrigger team for a couple years, and getting just, more involved in the office as people moved on from their jobs, or some of the women in the office had kids and they weren't coming back. I kind of just started picking up more and more tasks. And that's just kind of where I am now, is just, the day-to-day stuff, the operations, making sure everything's kind of running smoothly, working with, there's so many programs at NAC, rowing, outrigger, We Are Ocean, dragon boat, waterman, and then adult programs within all those junior programs. So there's just a lot going on. And so now I just kind of help keep everything running smoothly,
And Malia.
And Malia's a huge impact
part of
in
that as well.
Yep.
So all these names seem to haven't gone very far.
Yeah.
They're coming together.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And that's where I am now. Still there.
Hallelujah. Thank you for that.
Some would
that's my
say
home away
doing
from home.
too much, maybe.
Maybe.
Whatever you're doing, I like it, so don't stop. But yes. Well, listen, is it a for-profit or nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit, 501c3.
Nonprofits are tough,
They're
right?
very
because
tough.
With the number of programs and it's real estate in Newport Beach. There's a zillion kids in and out of there every day, and adults. There is a ton of maintenance. There are tons of programs that you talked about. They're all good, but it takes leadership, and a nonprofit doesn't produce a ton of revenue to pay really good salaries. So you're expecting so much from people while not paying them that much, which is a bummer for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that one well,
Yeah,
right?
you call it's passion projects.
Right.
Your podcast, right?
I have it in here. I think what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I think when we get to you, Will, what you're doing right now, you could say the same thing.
But it's we found what the world and the community that we like to be in, that we want to be in. And there's, I would say, very few people in the outrigger paddling world that can make a living within that community. it's getting larger as far as the amount of people that can, but it's tough to make a living in this community so that basically, Kelly's positioned herself into a place of virtually just doing a passion project because it keeps her in the community that she loves with the people that she loves, and we can just keep feeding off of each other. And it's the same thing for me. We found ways to make enough money to make ends meet and to also be constantly surrounded by the things we love. Some would say too much, maybe.
Well, it's a small community when
Right.
you are in it all day,
Right.
every day.
Yeah, but that wasn't a goal necessarily. It was just, how do I stay in this
Yeah.
and not have to go get the real job, even though what she does is a real job
Yes, it is.
to me, and I would never do it, and we're in the same
Right.
community. So we've found our niches at the things that we're good at.
For sure.
And somehow, you kind of, again, you make your own way.
Right.
Well, we're
yeah.
going to...
I was gonna say, with like our community being so, like, it's not the surfing community is huge, right? Outrigger
Global, massive.
is like a 16th of that size, if that.
Keep
Super
going.
small. And so, you have these people that you surround yourself with, and it comes down to we would never let each other fail. That would never happen.
I love that.
And Wild Bill, he's like our ringleader, right? So it's like, he's never going to let us fail, So it's like, you kind of build a team around you so strong that you don't really know who the leader is, because everyone is just leading each other and supporting each other.
And that community that you guys have and have built and are core in the middle of have a huge support mechanism around you,
Right.
of people that are passionate about the NAC, passionate about the programs. And so hopefully we'll never let it fail either.
No, yeah.
It's a big, again, it a bit of a love fest, and
Right.
it's Valentine's Day, so maybe
Yep.
it's fitting, but
As a collective hustle.
Yeah.
To if you could take a look at what Kelly does, if you wrote it down on a resume, and if you took that to a corporation or somewhere that could utilize the skill sets that she has, she could be making a lot of money.
Sure, for sure.
I know one day you probably could do that or should do that, but I don't think she'd be happy necessarily.
And not only that, and we're going to come back to, because what you just said, you could have been saying to a mirror.
Yeah.
But the other part of what you're doing is the race direction. And you have, any idea how many races you've put on?
In total?
Well, what do you do a
total.
year now?
I do 9 small boat races and the Catalina crossing.
And I just, the
There's
amount of
12
work.
months
I gave up 3 this year. I'm doing 3 less races this year.
The amount of work that goes into, it's something I would never, ever want to be a part of, is organizing a race, especially so let me ask you this, because it'll answer the question I was going to ask. As a race director, is there if I had a magic wand, Kel, and there's one thing I could do to change something that happens on a regular basis about a race, whether it be the competitors or is there something that you're like, every friggin' race this happens, I can never, is there any in particular? You might have a list of 10 things.
I do.
Or 10 specific people.
Yeah, the people. SUP could be its own race. No, I'm just kidding.
What are these prone guys?
These prone
doing,
guys.
What the heck? Get out of the finish lane.
Each race is different. Like Buffalo, I'm dealing with so many
Wild Buffalo
different
is the channel crossing
for small boats, and then that's totally different than the channel crossing for the big boats, But each race is just something different. Like with Buffalo, I'm dealing with the escort boat drivers, with the angry iron paddlers that are upset that I'm making them get an escort boat, and
I don't know. I'm not getting angry. I think it's the smart choice.
But yeah, no. Each race brings something different. So
Will might be getting angry.
We're good at disagreeing.
We are very good.
I love it. Well, this is why you guys have a great and successful podcast together.
Sorry, you said successful.
Well, people really like it. I didn't gauge it from a monetization standpoint or anything else, but friggin' love your podcast, and we're almost there. Kelly, with regard, so just one of the surprises, I'm sure there's always surprises or things.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a race, the Hal Rossoff race last weekend at NAC.
Yep.
Perfect example. Murphy's Law of unexpected consequences. What happened that day?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously last week and the last 2 weeks in Southern California has been just a huge rainstorm, just crap weather. We actually had a rudderless race in the middle of that storm, and we had a clear window to run it. We ran it. It started raining just a couple hours later.
And they had great conditions for that one. That was the Va'a second race of the series.
Yep. And so we get to Hal Rossoff, and it's the day before, and we're just like, oh, this is gonna be great. You know, there's blue skies, and yes, there's full-on trees floating in the water, but we'll avoid them. And
there
then
always is for that race.
But then our junior rowing team, who was supposed to have a race in Long Beach that day, with a lot of other teams in the area in California. In Long Beach, there was a sewage spill, and their permit got pulled.
Last minute.
Minute. Literally at noon on Friday, we got word that their regatta was canceled. And so, there was a team from Los Gatos that had already driven down, had 3 buses full of kids, had their hotel rooms booked. They couldn't get refunds. And so NAC worked together with all their programs, and we hosted a scrimmage for rowing Friday afternoon. There was a scrimmage Saturday morning between NAC and Los Gatos before the Hal Rossoff race started. And they were off the water by 8:30, and we were racing by 9. So,
which is crazy.
Yeah. So there's always something going on, but it just, I think it just goes back to the leadership of working together, where
and that resourcefulness that you guys have figured out very, very well.
With Billy and working with the rowing coaches, working with Malia and I on the race, and our 3 groups just being like, well, this is what NAC does. We just make it happen.
Problem solve.
We problem solve
incredibly well.
Yeah.
Again, there's not a better facility or team
Yep.
than the Newport Aquatic Center. So kudos to you. So I came down the hill early that morning because on race day, there's not going to be, there's a big beach, there's the parking lot. It's going to be wall to wall to wall.
Yep.
And I come down early that morning, and I'm like, there's 2 buses.
Yep.
There was 100 cars, and I was like,
Yep.
what? Did I miss? Did I have the times wrong?
Yep.
And then I found out what was going on. So surprise,
Yeah.
right? Always something last minute. So let's pivot over to Will. So Will, you are still, as you've talked about, deep in this world that you've chosen to be a part of. And over and above racing and really being a driving force on the coaching side of some of the premier paddlers and boats.
I'm not doing any coaching.
Well,
but you could. I keep trying to
Okay,
get
maybe
him.
it's not coaching, but you're definitely leading a charge within that group of guys. Like, you've always been a natural leader because you're one of the premier paddlers in this area. You are. You don't have to respond. But you also are building boats, and you started with repairing boats.
Mm-hmm.
You're building some beautiful stuff. You want to talk about what you're doing?
Yeah. I started building boats when I eventually moved to Maui. So this is after college. Moved to Maui, and I was building boats with Kai Bartlett and Nate Loyola, who he now builds his own. It's Kai's design that he builds on Oahu, but he builds them himself. Yeah.
Kai,
I'm always branded.
Yes.
It's the only clothes I own. It's clothes that are given to you. And I spent about 2 years, I think just about 2 years, learning how to build boats with Kai, for Kai. But he did a lot of the, I was pretty new at the time. I'd done a little bit of building on Oahu with Kamanu, not a ton, but a little bit to just kind of have a feel for it. And then when I started working for Kai, that's when the ball really started rolling. Got a lot of really quality training from a guy like him, who at the time was building some of the best boats out there. And then when I moved back to California after spending a couple years with him, I was back working at NAC, back in the shop, working on NAC boats, doing little repairs, and just getting more familiar with the repair side of things. Learning a lot from Jose and Micah, and eventually opening up my own repair shop down in Oceanside. and then learning pretty quickly. And Billy told me, you don't make any money when you have overhead. And even though it was a small amount of overhead, it was still, I was looking at it going, this
passion project.
Yeah, this isn't going to be good. But it kept, I was able to keep it going. And then right when things were starting to look pretty grim, my now partner in ER Canoes, he's the E in the law firm name that we decided to go with. If the feds are listening, I can't say his full name, just in case. But Aaron, he tasked me with building a 3-man canoe, and he gave me a check with the amount of money that we thought would be required, and that was kind of the beginning of it. So I'd never gone from the ground up, and so I made our first 3-man canoe, and it came out looking cool, but it was adults couldn't fit in it.
Oh, I didn't know this part. I knew it looked cool. That's all I knew.
I missed the mark so bad.
Really?
As far as making a competitive.
Did Kai just go, told you, giggle or a little giggle? Or is that just, because isn't that part of the learning process?
Yeah. He's very blunt with his assessment of your work, especially when you're working for him. There's a standard that you have to meet.
I would imagine.
And he's not going to give you the pat on the back and say, no, this looks good. He's going to tell you what you did wrong. When it came to looking at things that I made, there was a slightly different side I got from him, because of course, I could probably put it on one hand, the people whose opinion about the boat I am really going to digest. And he's at the top of that list. And so there was a little bit of embarrassment, but then also a bit of pride that, I completed the job, but it was not done. The process was just beginning. And that's kind of where I started having a slightly different relationship with him, where he was opening up in a different type of way.
A little bit more mentoring?
Yeah, a lot more mentoring about,
mentor.
kind of opening up more about his process, and, really just being very open about talking about his progression that he had himself, because you could look back at your first things you built in anything and kind of, oh, geez, that wasn't great. And then you look at what you're currently doing going, all right, I see progress.
Progress equals happiness, typically.
And so, I look at the boats now, like, I appreciate you saying they look good, but I'm looking at them going, oh, God.
Of course.
There's a lot more to go.
But that's your job, right?
Yeah.
How to continue to refine it.
So, we're building a 6-man. NAC has just sent in their deposit. We're going to be building a boat for NAC in honor of John Van Cleve. That could be a whole nother podcast. Yes. I know you didn't want me to bring it up, but I can't thank you enough for Crown Ace's donation to buy the Pirai boys from Tahiti their canoe for this upcoming Catalina. The generosity.
That's a nice setup. All right, cut.
I was like, holy man.
How much money do I have in my wallet at the moment? We'll see.
This is what Justin told me.
You're a funny guy.
And this is, we're just
Listen, if I was going to buy one, I'd actually buy one for you. You're a funny guy.
See how I do business, Ken?
Good man.
You like that?
All right. Good thing I can edit that right. Very funny. I was waiting for some Will to come at me today.
Support Crown Ace.
Right. Please do.
We're building 6-mans now. We're gonna, try to build 10 boats a year if we can. Wow. I'm working in about a 1,200 square foot shop. In a boat, the shop's 46 feet long. The boats are 44 feet long. It's a tight squeeze, but imagine. We're, me and Judson Gray, I got to give a shout out to him.
Yeah, Judson.
My father-in-law, Pep, and Ty Aviao, another paddler. And there's been a couple other guys in and out of the shop in the past, but it's pretty much, Judson's there every day.
Rad.
He's really developing as a canoe builder. And it's fun to see because I know exactly the point that he's at from personal experience.
Think about it, or the way I look at it, it's pretty interesting. We're very blessed as I was saying before, the kind of people we get access to. You guys have access to whether international or domestic or Hawaii. But so you've got Kai, premier boat brand, boat builder. I believe that you have some affiliation with Johnny Puakea, the other one of the premier boat brands, like opposite side of the table. I'm surprised, like co-branding,
Right.
you know. But I mean, and then we've got Jimmy Terrell, local, Olympic and world-class mad scientist of anything made of carbon
Right.
and all the paddles. And these are not just names, like these are all friends of yours, like direct access to some of the best boat builders. I mean, it's really amazing.
It's got to be, I have to imagine it's similar, like for NFL, NBA, like when you're entrenched in that community, you realize that these are just people.
Yeah.
Right.
We're just, you know, we have the same kind of normal lives for the most part, you know, and like you could look at like a LeBron James and there's somebody out there that's just buddies with him.
Yep.
For sure.
That just, hey, what's up?
Yeah. and calls him out and calls his shit. Right?
And
like,
it's just normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just guys.
But for the rest of us, we're like, holy smokes. But it's, but having access and growing up watching them build and being able to work with Kai.
Oh, actually, and I should say, my first ever job was for Jim Terrell at QuickBlade.
Is that right?
So there you go.
Yeah. It's super neat. And there's so many other people, like, right, you mentioned Micah in the shop, Jose in the shop. This guy named Bruce is pretty handy.
He's got
all right.
He's a good guy. I might love him, your husband, Bruce. Super neat. Now, Will, we kind of glossed over, but let's go back and talk about, because I think it's been so formative. You talked about your 1 year in Hawaii, but what about the rest of the time you spent over there? Like, and this will go into like, I'm going to have to come up with like the obligatory questions about like your favorite races that you've done, maybe the gnarliest races you guys have done and where you've raced, but just talk about how long did you live in Hawaii when you went back?
4 years?
I think so.
Yeah.
On
But
Maui
it was
or
on and
Oahu?
off. Yeah, I did 2 years on Oahu, 2 years on Maui. The 2 years on Oahu were broken up, but I went back. I was working I finished at Cal Poly and then I moved back to Oahu and I worked at Kualoa Ranch. And so I was working out on the ranch, doing an internship to finish up my last bit of school. And then from there, moved straight over to Maui to do canoe tours at the Ondas. And that's still run by Keikoa Kramer, who's one of the, you know.
The Ondas is Wailea?
Yeah, in Wailea. Yeah, and he steers the Wailea boys, and he was kind of the, you know, one of the top steersmen in Hawaii. And, you know, he brought me over to Maui. Things eventually didn't really work out for me with the canoe tours. It just not very authentic getting a canoe tour from a guy from California when you're on your vacation.
Yeah.
From
Hawaii.
California.
Yeah, it's a little like I look back on it now.
I
I go, yeah, that made sense. And then that's when I went full time with Kai. Yeah, and it was just all paddling, all building.
And would you, I don't know, where does Kai build on?
Well, he doesn't build anymore. He designs still.
He designs. But where
Yeah,
where on Maui were you living? Where's Kai?
I
over
was
there?
living up in Lower Kula.
So you were doing the Maliko run a lot, I'm guessing.
Not as much as I would have liked.
Really?
You know, that's
You were working.
Yeah, that's. I mean, trust me, I get to do it plenty, but that's always the misconception of working for yourself. Is you know, we were contractors and we got paid by piecework, and so the more jobs you did, the more you got paid. But also too, like, you know, the people that we've surrounded ourselves, we've talked about it, are hustlers, and Kai especially then when he was manufacturing and building on Maui, he hustled, and so that got pretty ingrained in you. And so, yes, we trained plenty. Yes, we would do downwind runs, but it wasn't just like
you're
winds
grinding.
up, let's go, Pat.
Right.
To live in Hawaii,
Yeah, that doesn't.
you're earning your keep. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an expensive
So
place to
maybe,
live. You got to be.
I don't know
working
how
hard.
it was in the 60s, 70s, and it's the classic stereotype, surf's up. Let's go. It wasn't that way, because if you had jobs to do, you were going to do them.
Interesting.
And so, you know, we did have the luxury, if we had moments in time, to go sneak in a Maliko run and come back to work. But you always had to come back to work,
Yeah.
it seemed like.
But that's a hell of a trade-off if you can make that happen. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's
you
I mean,
figure it out.
listen, if you can paddle, even periodically, Maliko, if you're on Maui, Maliko or the Kihei runs, like that's world-class downwind paddling. And then I'm guessing you got to do, so let me ask you this. How many Molokai crossings have you done? Do you know?
I don't know.
What about Maui to Molokai? That's a good one.
At least, well, maybe not at least. I'd probably say 8 to 10.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
8
that's,
to 10 maybe.
there's not, well, if
But
you
we
live in Hawaii,
mainly-
you do a lot of those, but
yeah.
that's as good as it gets from a paddling, in my perspective. If you're a paddler, and paddling here is really a means to an end to going to do downwind stuff.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be Molokai, et cetera. So if you get to do that on a regular basis, like coming back and paddling flat water here, you're like, here we
Yeah.
go. It's cold and it's flat.
Well, and like when we were growing up, the goal was always to go do Molokai, but you had to be 18 to do it.
That's right,
The change race, right? The 9-man. But now it's 16 or something, so now there's more kids doing it. But when we were kids, it was like you turned 18, you're like, okay, I hope I make the
It's a
NAC
big deal,
team this
yeah.
year to go do it, you know?
Yeah.
How many times have you done Molokai?
I've done Nawahini 5 times.
It's awesome. Hold on.
And she did the one.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was
So,
on the
I asked-
escort boat.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yes.
So I had mentioned gnarliest races, most memorable races. Can you tell the year and why it was so memorable?
That been 2011?
They're big
Molokai,
photos.
2012.
2012.
I will never forget showing up to Haleolono and looking Will in the eyes because he's our change coach and he's got the NAC women's team. We're young. It's me, it's Bobby, you know, his wife, and Cora, and we're young. And it was most of the girls' first time crossing, but there was a group of us, Danny's wife, myself, Bobby. We had done it before.
So let me just
But
tap pause
yeah.
for a second just to frame it. So one of the most elite races, most reputable races in the world of any craft in downwind paddling is Molokai to Oahu, 32 miles. It's actually longer
this
than that.
one,
It's
yeah,
40,
42.
42. In my world of surf ski and prone, it's and maybe OC1 or outrigger. It's also the 32-mile course?
That's a 32.
Yeah.
Okay, but in 9-man, so you have 6 people in the boat, 3 people change in and out, 9-man, and you leave from the beach on Molokai, and you paddle to the beach
Yep.
on Oahu, and if there's waves,
Yeah.
it makes things interesting. So
Very
there were some
interesting.
waves.
There were
that
some
day.
waves. We showed up and I looked at Will and I go, what is this? It's closing out at the harbor entrance. And Will goes, oh, I've seen this before. Don't
Yeah,
worry,
I
you're
was
fine.
Lying
my
through
Through
teeth.
his teeth, Mark. And we're like, oh, well, Will's seen this before. We're fine.
Yeah.
And then it just got bigger and bigger. And it just so happened that Sam was also there coaching the change coach. So on the motorboats, you have a figure that's not racing. You have someone who's calling your changes and coaching you from the boat. Will was our guy. Sam was coaching the offshore girls that year, just as a change coach. Elaine, JoJo, those girls. Billy Whitford was also there, change coaching another team with Julie Wolfe. I think JoJo was in that team. I really don't know, but all 3 of you guys were there, and all 3 of them were like, yeah, no, we've seen this before. It's fine. Yeah, we're good.
And there's like, how many boats are in that race
I mean,
that year?
Around 80.
around 80
probably.
maybe.
And
Yeah.
you all have to paddle out through closing
Right.
out. When we
don't
say closing out,
have to.
okay, but
That's what we
closing out, yeah, but so logistically, right? That race is hard, but the hardest part is the logistics. You got to get to Oahu, get to Molokai, get the boats over. Like, it is logistics. It is very
Yep.
expensive, and you've planned your year around this race
Yep.
oftentimes. So you get there and you see, we say closing out. That is massive surf,
Massive.
closing the harbor mouth,
Massive.
and you got to go through it.
And you've got to go through it. And so...
And a bunch of people are lying, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, to make us feel better. But I mean, I remember going to Billy and Billy just saying, just stay calm and whatever happens, you'll get through it. Just stay calm, and trust in your crew. And I'm like, okay, well.
And you were steering.
I was not
No,
at
you weren't.
Cora
Cora
was
was.
steering. I was in seat 5. And so we're going out and there's somebody on the pier or on the jetty. And we don't know who he is, and he's just waving at people to go, 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 or stop, 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 and we don't know if we should listen to him or judge ourselves, and we end up going. We're like, okay, it's gonna be clear, and then as we're going, there's a boat in front of us that starts turning left, and just starts taking our boat with it. And so when you look at the photos of that iconic photo, you see our canoe parallel with the wave, which is
It's not good.
not the position you want to be in, because if wave crashes here, you don't want to be here.
Yeah,
you know?
turtle.
And I just remember myself and Leah, and everyone's just saying it's gonna roll under us and we're gonna be fine.
Yeah, you had a little gap.
Yeah, and so these huge waves, we went up and we dropped down so fast.
Over the back?
Over the back. It had not crashed yet. It goes under. We came up. We dropped down so fast. We started paddling. All the other canoes were behind us because they turned. We paddled.
Hold on, they turned?
They turned, and that's when.
To try to go back in?
Yep. So that's what turned us, is these boats. This person started turning because the guy on the pier said stop. And we said, no, you have to go. Yeah. You can't stop. Just go. And so they went around us, and we, whatever maneuver we had to do, and we just went, and it was better for us. And yes, it was really scary, but we came out with our hair dry, is what we say.
Hallelujah. A lot of boats didn't.
A lot of boats didn't.
Go on YouTube.
Cleaned
look it up.
up.
Awahine 2012?
2012, it was.
Yeah.
Because then.
Never forget that, right?
Never forget
Ever.
it. No. And then, we raced in 2013. We raced in 2014 in a Koa canoe, and that was the year that Sam passed. So that was really special for us. We had
2014?
Yeah.
10 years ago already?
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
And so we had a really special crew. We raced a Koa canoe across the channel. We got second and in the division of Koa. Just to make that clear. But I'm a world
Koa
champion.
canoe. A lot. Koa canoe, that's a Koa wood canoe, a lot heavier? Is it more authentic? Is it a traditional? Or is it?
I think it'd still be around 400 pounds.
I think it's the same. It's definitely a different build or design, and Will knows a lot more than I do. But
I was just curious. Yeah.
The
it sounds
seats
like
sit differently, and it was really special. Johnny Puke, his dad, Bobby, had set that up for us, and everything, and and then in 2015 we all showed up again to race. And once again, the waves were so big. It was 2015 or 2016, but the waves were so big, the wind was so high. We're like, oh, they're going to cancel the race. There's absolutely no way. It's the day before the race. We go to the coaches meeting, and the people, you can tell they're just getting ready. There's tears. People are crying. I'm like, oh, they're going to cancel the race. Why are all these people crying? Why are we crying? And then I just start thinking, I'm like, well, I have to get off this island. I am not going to get stuck on Molokai. And so I call Bruce, and Bruce doesn't answer. I call Micah. I go, Micah, you need to get me a plane ticket off this island. Like, we have no internet. We can't, And yeah, they ended up canceling the race because the wind was. There's only been 2 that they've had to cancel the race, and that was one of them because the wind was too strong and the waves were too big. And
we've had one canceled, Catalina.
Yes.
Cancelina.
Yep.
We don't like canceled races. That adds a whole lot.
Yep.
Well, listen, thanks for sharing that stuff. We could go all day, and I could ask you a million of the obligatory questions about races, but I think
we're good.
Yeah.
But I would love to talk about the podcast. Again, and it's super fun to have you guys on this side. And I know that this studio is a little bit different. Will, where do you usually record from?
Anywhere and everywhere.
Front seat of your car, wherever it may be.
The couch.
It's such a good podcast, you guys.
Walking.
And you're coming up on 100 episodes, is that right?
Yep.
That is so cool. I think I've listened to everyone. Let me ask a question. If there's one person that if you have a super fan that's probably going to be the first one to listen to this podcast, who is that?
Wade Williford.
That's right.
No questions asked.
None. Wade was,
he is our number one guy.
For sure. It was really fun to interview Wade
here
too. Just super fun. What a good, funny dude.
Yeah.
And a great paddler. Passionate paddler. What was the genesis? Like, when did you start it and why?
I think I called Will and I said, I have an idea. And you were like, okay.
Another one?
Literally, it's probably what he said. And he's like, I got to sit down. I can't do this. Our whole life has been Kelly calling, saying, hey, I've got this idea.
We love that about you.
And this was, just for a frame of reference for time, this was February of 2019. And his your daughter was going to be born a month later. And so I was asking him to take on this project as, he's about to become a dad, and Woody's, driving me nuts at 11 months old already. And I was like, let's just do a podcast where we just talk about paddling. We get to talk to our friends because, as you said, like, we are lucky and blessed enough to have access to some really cool people that, you know, have really cool stories. Everyone from, you know, people who just started paddling to Wade Williford to, you know, Johnny Puakea. And I was like, this could be really cool. And so we did 2 episodes, and then COVID hit. And we picked it back up in November of 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
November 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, we took that little hiatus. We had baby time and COVID time, and
because our first two episodes we were together. We didn't even think about Zoom.
Yeah.
We thought we had to be together.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
Zoom wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, now it's amazing how times changed so quickly, because podcasts I didn't consume really that much then. Now it's the only thing that I'm consuming. But you know, to me it was more just like let's interview people, or just kind of shoot the shit and have a couple drinks, and it'll be a fun, because we weren't seeing a whole lot of each other at that point either. In our lives.
Young kids, and then this thing called COVID will throw a wrench in stuff, right?
So even the 2 pre-COVID, I think one of the main ideas was like, hey, this will be an excuse
to get together,
hang out, have a couple beers, it'll be good. And then it stopped for a minute, and then when we got back to it, I don't know, I don't really remember whole, because it just kind of became a habit.
Yeah.
We've been a little bit, you know, life gets in the way a little more now.
Right.
But we were pretty good for a while.
Yeah.
You know, and we've got plans for the future, and let's be, you know, I'm not trying to just prop you up here, but we'll be clear. I think everybody knows that this is Kelly's project.
Kelly's
that I'm
goer.
a voice on.
No.
Because she does the producing. I think I've set up 2 interviews in our however many 60-some interview episodes.
Everybody has their role in this world.
Well, if he would have said no, this is dumb, I would not have done it.
Oh, I did say that.
He did, but I pushed him a little bit more. But if he really was like, Kelly, we're not doing this, I would have been like, okay, cool. It was just an idea. You know,
it's so fun. It's such a good thing. And what I think for me, and the reason I started this is because I want to, like, it's really fun to connect the dots, and it's fun to get the stories and the backstories. But for me, I wanted to interview my parents and have it while they're still young and sharp. And my grandkids will be able to look at me when I was reasonably, you know, middle-aged, but see their grandparents or great-grandparents while they were sharp and lucid and super cool. Because I remember my grandparents when they were old.
Right.
And now it's recorded. So what you guys are doing memorializes all these people at a spot in time that 100 years from now is still potentially going to be there and viewable for all these people's families, which I think is super special and really, really cool. And it's fun. And I love the way you guys have always done it. And I just think it's great. What's funny is, you know, I've called you a few times, Kelly, like, how do you do this? How do you do this? Because I bought all the equipment to do a podcast during COVID because I've always wanted to do it. And I realized in about 5 minutes that I want to talk and interview. I'm not cut out to do all the IT and all the follow-up and all that stuff. And that's when this came available. Ironically, one of the gentlemen in the back, we've got Cole right here, and we've got Murphy in the back. I called Murphy, and he came over and helped me buy the equipment and set it all up and start doing it. And truly in 5 minutes, I realized I need somebody else to do all the back end.
Well, that's why and it still is just a very organically grown thing.
But 100 is no joke.
You know, we don't have the sound quality that you have with this. We don't have the headphones. But we just do it.
It's clearly not essential, and you're getting all the content, and you're getting
now
the
would
people.
It be better with this?
You guys, it's as good as, like, it's freaking awesome, right?
Yeah, but it's fun. You know, we got a couple of things coming up that we want to really work on for this year. You know, like progressing into a situation with a little bit more equipment.
Right.
But when it's the content and that we're after.
Consistency is we were.
So if you can deal with the kids, you
can
deal with Bruce watching TV in the background.
Which is endearing about it, trust me. But one of the things I was going to ask you both, because with young kids we love them all, but they throw a wrench in stuff.
Everything.
Right?
Everything.
So you're trying to be super high performance in paddling and at work, and you have all these different things going, and yet you've got a young one at home, 2 young ones at home. We have to give a lot of props for our spouses for allowing.
Oh, 100%.
But like when
Bruce and Bobby are a godsend. My husband Bruce, his wife Bobby.
Yeah. So kudos to spouses here on Valentine's Day, right?
That too.
They do a lot of heavy lifting,
Yeah.
right? Because I couldn't do all the stuff I do if my wife wasn't 100% supportive of
Right.
it. And I try to be really good and around when I'm not, or when I can be. And my wife certainly knows that I'm a much nicer person after I've paddled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also helps too is we have crippling ADHD and just can't stop
I'm right there with you.
and sit on a couch.
I am right there with you. I have a funny, well, it's not funny. I may have just screwed it up. I have a family question for you guys. Kelly, what's your daughter's name?
Piper.
Will, what's your parents' dog's name?
We're not doing this.
No, I
we
have
go.
to.
Here
What's
we
your
go.
dog? What's your parents'
What's
dog's
your
name?
parents' dog's name? Sunshine.
It's Piper.
It's Piper.
Hold on. Your parents' dog's name's Piper. Your
My
daughter's name's Piper.
We
That's
went,
so
we
interesting.
went over this in a recent
What came first,
know you
episode
did.
of ours
the baby
because
or
we
the
had-
puppy?
But I've heard it firsthand, and I
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
seen it.
yeah. We had, I mean, yeah, Christmas could have gone one of two ways. And at the
No.
friends and family Christmas party, we had mom doubled down on that one.
That
Yeah.
is so great.
But she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
She
Loved
was
it.
winding you
It's-
up a little
It's
bit.
just fun. And
So hang on though.
And
that's
I don't
family
know if I-
dynamic.
But that's-
I don't know if I've explained this enough. The name was Bailey. The name of the dog.
Oh,
Was
your
Bailey.
daughter or the
No,
dog?
no, the
Okay.
dog.
The dog.
Gotcha.
And it was like my mom was like, "It's Bailey," but she had just mentioned Piper once, and Dad took Piper and
Oh, it's
heard
Willie.
nothing else.
He turned off
Yeah.
his
So
hearing
my
aids
mom-
about that time.
There was like a week
She
where we're
probably-
calling the dog 2 names.
Yeah.
That's-
She probably mentioned it to your dad saying, hey, Kelly had her daughter, Piper.
Probably. Very likely.
I just love the family dynamic. Again, one more way
Yeah.
that you guys are just forever linked. It's
Well,
so
and it's fun when you tell Finn we're going to go to the beach with Woody and Piper, and she says, Piper kid,
Or
Piper,
Piper
dog.
Yeah. But
That's
it,
so
you know,
good.
it's actually, it is really cool because our kids are best friends and we're best friends and our families are so intertwined, whether it's his parents and my parents or everyone around. And it just goes back to the community, that we're in and everything.
Well, again, you guys are instrumental in the community, and so thank you for that in a lot of ways. And I think also we're blessed to have grown up around here because I grew up here too. And a lot of us go away, or a lot of people go away, but a lot of people migrate back because
Right.
we're so blessed to be here. And
Right.
so a lot of my best friends are best friends from grade school
Yep.
also. Some of which spend time at NAC. So it's just,
Yeah.
it's a big town, small town, really luxury
Yep.
thing.
Can we
that
talk
get.
about this luxury thing?
Yeah.
Why?
What
What
thing?
is with the white buildings with the black trim?
Yeah, I think
a
it's
trend.
I think it's a trend.
It's a trend.
I think it's a trend.
It's a
And
trend, all right.
I
It's a
just
trend.
want to make sure
Houses,
you know
buildings,
that we will
yeah.
never be trendy. So, and that's okay. We don't have to be trendy.
You're saying you'll never be trendy?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. It's an interesting time in the world where everything is white.
Yeah.
White. I know. Hey, listen, my wife and I always say, we'll walk, we love to walk and we love architecture and stuff, and we'll walk, God, like, why did they just build that? And over time I've realized, like, if everybody did things the way I liked it, it would be a very boring world.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
that
I'm okay
somebody
with
that built that really ugly thing, but they love it, I hope they really love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never live there, but
Yep.
hopefully they love it. Because
Yeah.
if everybody's the same, what fun is that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We need some diversity out there. You guys, I could go on and on. I just want to, but I'm going to do this. I just want to say thank you. Honest to goodness, it's great to have people like you leading this. I don't know if it's the next generation, but certainly you're a generation below me. And what you guys provide in the paddling world, from leadership, from organization, from just reputation, it's super, super cool and very much appreciated. For your role at NAC, which is one of my favorite places on earth, thank you. It's really cool to see really good things happening in the paddle world, but I really do think it's a lot bigger than that because community, Ohana,
Yeah.
it's so important and it's super cool, and we're blessed to all be kind of a part of it. So thank you guys. And
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you.
for being part of the Passion Project on Valentine's Day. And
I
thank
love
you for
it.
taking the opportunity to be on that side of
I
the
know.
interview, which is fun for me.
I was nervous.
And thank you for your purchase of a new canoe. I can't
Yeah,
thank you
I'm
enough
working on that.
for having
I'm
us here.
working on that. Working on it.
Yeah.
Kel and Will, thanks so much. You guys rock.
Thanks,
and,
Mark.
have fun with the 100th episode of Cocktails and
I
Canoes.
Is that next?
know.
Is this 99?
We'll drop one this week that's been in the can, because that's a phrase podcasters
Ooh,
use. We've
I'm
got one in
learning.
the can.
Oh.
Actually, I don't know, but we'll drop that one, and then the next one's 100.
Radical.
So,
Super impressive, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Boom.